Today we're going to take a look at the paintings of Karl Moll and how stronger, more saturated color helps us suggest stronger sunlight. Karl Moll was an artist from Vienna, Austria. He was born in 1861 and died in 1945. He was one of the founding members of the Secession movement, or Art Nouveau movement, along with Gustav Klimt. And his work was inspired by pointillism techniques and French Impressionism. The pointillism is just spots of color that the eye kind of blends together. You can see it here in this one. But also kind of a flatness to the painting or to the subject, which emphasizes more the design instead of just pure realism. So the design is very strong, really stands out. And using stronger, more saturated color. Now, not so much in his early paintings. He went to the Academy of Fine Art in Vienna. And here his work is more value-oriented, not color. Color is basically blacks and earth colors, not much pure colors or primary or secondary colors. Just a lot of black, a lot of high contrast, and a lot of low-key. In other words, darks are dark, the lights are also dark. So all the values are arranged in the lower or darker value range. Where this one, it's a higher value range. The darks are lighter, the lights are lighter. It's another early one. Again, using more blacks and earth colors. There's depth here because the values get lighter in the background. But he's not using color temperature to show the depth in there. And again, the darks go black, not much, if any, color in them. And the lights are also darker also. Still high contrast, but very muted color. Now we're starting to get more saturated color, some flat areas to emphasize more the design, like in the background hills. The black and earth colors, for the most part, are gone. And it's a stronger color saturation. And the values are a higher key. The shadows are lighter, and the lights are a lot lighter. Same thing here. Paint's a lot thicker. It's more about the brushwork than it is detail. Thick paint or thick brushwork, along with the design. Very strong values, but more saturated color, especially up front. And here he's using more cooler colors to suggest the depth, instead of just going grayer and lighter. Now he's going cooler and lighter to show that depth in there. Has some smaller, probably plein air paintings where you can see the color's a lot more saturated. Nice simple shapes in these trees that we're going to be looking at here in the next few paintings. They're not detail oriented. They're just big masses, big shapes of dark and light to suggest the light. And again, there's a kind of a nice flatness to it that makes the design stand out, become more important rather than just the detail, which is how this painting is more oriented. And the thicker paint kind of takes over a bit more, because when you simplify everything, when you get rid of detail and you have bigger dark and light shapes and the paint is thicker, it becomes a lot more important. So that variety of thick and thin paint, and then pushing the warm and cool colors, the contrast, no black and not as much earth colors or relying on them. And here, the black and earth colors, I think, are pretty much gone. More pure colors, some pointillism, in other words, more pure colors just next to each other, and really pushing the temperature. Strong, cool colors in the shadows, warmer colors in the lights. Again, it's very high key. The shadows are a little lighter, lights are lighter. So the lights have more white in them. They're not as strong. On a cloudy day, Here you can see the colors are richer and more saturated than on a sunny day because you don't have that bright sunlight affecting everything. So adding more white to the colors here in the sunlit areas washes out the colors a little bit. So that's the nice thing about a cloudy day is you have richer color. We tend to think of cloudy day as grayer color, but not so. It's richer because you don't have to add the white to it to get it lighter as you do on a sunlit day. And it's using smaller brush strokes too, but within those small brush strokes, the big shapes still hold together. You can see the simplicity of the shapes of the trees. Simple dark and light shapes. It makes the effect of sunlight stand out more. The detail can kill that sense of sunlight because you're breaking up those big shapes too much. Nice reflected light in these tree trunks. Brush strokes also become more evident and more important, and not so with the detail. Really like the big solid masses of these trees. He's designing those shapes that they read real well with just simple dark and light values. And again, warmer in the sunlight, cooler in the shadow. Another smaller painting, probably done outside. Here's one, very high key. In other words, the values are all lighter, shadows are lighter, the lights are lighter, a lot of white in the shadows, but they're still warm. Shadows are cool. Even though there's some warmth in the shadow, they're not as warm as the light areas, the sunlit areas. So separating that warm and cool really helps suggest the light. But good value contrast, there's still strong value contrast, it's just lighter, everything's lighter. But you still have the same value relationships. Another one here, the strong light, more saturated color in the greens and the oranges, and cooler in the more dappled light area and shadows in the foreground. Another high key painting. Spots of blue or edges of blue to really emphasize the coolness of the shadows a bit more. And same thing in the lights, there's just spots of yellow and orange in there to help suggest the color temperature. This painting, I think, is a bit more faded, the image of it, not as saturated. But again, a strong separation of dark and light. Not as much color variation, although I think this is not a great image color-wise. But I like the simplicity and the value variation within the shadows. Here's one too. Everything is more shape-oriented and value, dark and light value, and color temperature, but not so much detail. The detail has fallen away, and it's more about the brushwork and the color temperature contrast to make it work. He also did a lot of interiors too, and this one he's using a smaller brush, and it's a lot of detail. This one is more detail oriented, but the color's pretty strong, which I find harder to do, to get nice strong color and painting a lot of detail also. Usually one takes over, either the stronger color and less detail, or more detail and color doesn't work as well. But I think here they both work really well. Here's another one. Again, the small, choppy brush strokes, but the big shapes still hold together and capturing the light from the window really well. Also still lifes, a lot of still lifes where he uses really stronger saturated color. Here it's backlit, you can see the light filtering through the leaves. Really strong color in the shadow because of the translucent leaves. Yellow greens and reds in here. Here's a backlit painting where the lights become very, very light. They're almost more of a glare. So a very warm white, and all the color variation is in the shadows. And you get that with backlighting. But thicker paint and more saturated color. Another one here with the stronger color. You have the idea of a blue tablecloth or blue table here. And blue is very cool, so to warm it up, to show the effect of sunlight on the blue, he's come back into it and added oranges and reds, red oranges into the blue. The blue still dominates, but now there's a bit of warmth in there compared to the shadow, which is more blue and blue-green to read better as shadow. But a lot of high contrast, still that strong dark and light contrast along with the warm and cool contrast. Here he's using very saturated color. It looks like almost pure ultramarine blue, and maybe a pure alizarin crimson or cad red deep in the reds. A lot of really strong color in greens here. But he does use some muted color next to the real strong color. If you want a painting that looks really strong, brighter, more saturated color, you have to have some gray color in there next to the stronger color. You can see it in the leaves, some of the grayer violets, and in the bowl down here, and some of the greens. There's gray color in there, and that allows the stronger color to stand out more. If you want brighter, stronger color and you use all saturated color, then everything's just screaming at you. But when you introduce some grayer color next to the stronger color, then the strong color is more effective. It makes more of a statement. It's a nice one of flowers here. The more detail is up front. And the background, the paint is just very thin. No detail at all, just a little scrubbing in of some green to suggest a background. So the detail that's all up front really comes forward up against the real simple background. So that creates the depth there, the contrast of detail and simplicity. And lastly, the still life here, more impressionistic. No black or earth colors anymore, more pure color. Still the high contrast, value contrast, darks and lights, but use a lot more saturated color to suggest the light and the atmosphere.